Hello and welcome to this 8th edition of Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. Over the past 7 years, we've understood what matters most to you, the entrepreneur. And in year 8, we are taking head-on 2 of your most pressing concerns, that of funding and mentoring. I'm Sananda Jayaseelan. To the influencer conversations tonight. First up is Salesforce. On the other side of a break, Skymet in focus. Our first influencer conversation tonight is with Salesforce. In this exclusive conversation, I spoke to the country leader, India, at Salesforce to understand really how the market has changed when it comes to the use of cloud, what it means for small businesses, what is hygiene when it comes to using technology for small businesses, gender parity when it comes to the tech industry, and so much more. Take a listen. Sunil, so good to have you here in the studio talking to us about something that we're all very passionate about, and that's technology, and that is really what you're doing day in and day out. But first up, let's start by talking about why Salesforce is so excited by small businesses.
I think if we start looking at as a technology where small and medium enterprises are growing in today, and if you look at the lay of the land for India, clearly 60-65% of our business is in the SME sector. When I say, I'm not talking about Salesforce in specific, I'm talking generally for the industry. We clearly look at the contribution of what SMEs do to GDP. That's like almost half of it. Very clearly the growth, which we kind of see, almost 70-75% of that comes through the SME segment. So clearly as a segment in a developing market like India, where we kind of look at we being a digital economy, riding towards $1 trillion, that's a market space which is huge. And today, if you look at SMEs, the adoption for technology is very high.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Very clearly.
Okay.
We kind of look at all the surveys which we've done internally. Big ticket items like customer relationship. The SMEs are clearly wanting to provide a differentiated experience for their customers.
Sure.
Hyper-personalization is a new game which the SMEs are talking about.
Okay.
And these are all organizations who have a very clear vision to compete with the larger players, but really provide in their niche in a very differentiated manner. So customer experience is becoming important. The personalization is becoming important. And the SMEs are riding that wave with newer technologies, nimble-footed, very clearly adopting it faster. And that's where all the cloud technologies are coming into play. So
speaking of which, while I will not talk specific numbers in terms of just how large SMEs are for you, they do contribute a majority of your revenues, a significant portion. Let me correct myself.
Absolutely.
A significant portion of your revenues. My question is more in terms of where do you see this heading in the next couple of years? Do you think the kind of track record, and you're saying that they're adopting technology fast, do you think that's going to hold out?
Absolutely. So we kind of go back, look at, even if we tier the market, the tier 1, tier 2 cities clearly hold out big time because there's a lot of organizations which are setting up and all that. But over the last few quarters, we're starting to see that trend move on to the newer cities.
Sure.
Very clearly that gap is kind of reducing dramatically between affluent states versus new states catching up kind of thing. The government in some form is kind of encouraging a little bit of a startup community in some of these tier 3, tier 4 cities. So that's very good. And then if you kind of blend that to a newer age of technology, India is completely in a reinvention mode always. We kind of skipped the age of pager. We are in a mobile industry. Very clearly when you look at stats, internet, we're probably the second largest globally. Mobile adoption, we're the second largest globally. Messaging platform, we're the second largest globally. So clearly from those things, SMEs have a huge contribution to make in some of those adoptions.
Sure.
And that's where they're kind of using some of these newer technologies to kind of forefront that aspect. And today we see that adoption very high.
Okay, so while it's good that there is so much of optimism when it comes to SMBs and SMEs and smaller businesses really using technology, there are clearly a lot of challenges, particularly in multiple pockets and multiple areas. So if we were to maybe use this interview as a masterclass of sorts for you to talk to our viewers to say, this is what you're commonly seeing, these are some misconceptions perhaps that you're seeing, or what are the biggest challenges that you're seeing when it comes to working with small businesses and tech adoption really in India?
So there are a couple of areas where we kind of go look at from a market maturity perspective. When we look at tier 1 markets or tier 1 cities, clearly the SMEs have figured out a way, or a large set of SMEs have figured out a way where the funding comes from, where they're going to probably get their next big customer boost coming in. Aspects of customer experience, relationship management, what would it do for them? And there is a fairly matured ecosystem to help the SMEs. The challenges start coming in with tier 2, tier 3 cities, where, you know, it's probably a very highly enthusiastic entrepreneur who's saying, okay, I got this right, I got a great idea, I'll go figure out, I'll start with a pilot, and I'll go figure out adopting it with a few customers, and then raise funding and all that. I think that's where the stress levels we see in today. But clearly, when it comes to technology adoption, the first thing which the SMEs do is probably digitize everything which they want to work on. They are very clearly on the forefront of thinking, what is it that they need? They launch with technology more than getting through a manual process of what they want to get done. They launch through the idea of saying that I want to probably create a very differentiated approach for my customers, a very differentiated experience. And that's where we kind of see they taking a key role in adopting technology faster than any of the organizations. And that's the good part about SMEs. They are willing to take that risk. Their projects are smaller in duration. And when we kind of go back, look at the area which they adopt in from a price point perspective and all that, they're far more nimble. So they don't want the expertise of a very large services organization to come in and teach them what to do, adoption. They're pretty much, you know, it's a young workforce. It's a very inclusive workflows. They kind of understand it pretty well.
How about businesses, small businesses that are based in the top cities of India versus the ones that are based in a tier 3 and tier 4? Do you work closely with companies that are based in the smaller towns of India? Do you think there's a huge market there for you to tap?
Absolutely. So a good example of that is we work with Baby Saffron, a company which just provides quality saffron across India. And there are a lot of startups which kind of do. Fisdom is a good example of we having a digital lending platform for SMEs. We have probably created with one of the NBFCs a digital lending platform for even traders who can probably get $1,000 off in 2 minutes if they want to do a day's work of shopping and selling. I think those are areas which India has been frugal from a technology perspective, but been way ahead from a thinking perspective.
Since you're talking about some of the clients that you're working with, I want to name a few more that I understand that you work closely with, including the likes of HCL and Godrej Group. The reason I'm bringing these names up is if you can maybe talk to our viewers about the top 1 or 2 things that you're really bringing to the table when you're working with small businesses. What are the benefits that a small business that is working with someone like yourself can see?
I think to us, it's about technology. To us, it's about how do you build a very differentiated customer experience? Today in the connected world, when we look at everything which is there in a customer, they're looking at hyper-personalized experience. And that's exactly what we do. We are the #1 CRM technology company in the world. And what we bring in is a hyper-personalized ability for SMEs to get on with their customers and build that lifelong value and relationship. And that's exactly what we do.
Let's talk about the industry really, and where the industry is heading. And one thing that we must talk about is the availability of manpower. Everyone has been talking about how difficult it is to find people for highly skilled jobs, particularly in industries like yourself. What are you doing?
I think tech industry would probably look at an area where we kind of go back and say, hey, look, there are 20 million engineers which come out of India from the engineering colleges.
And all of them is hireable the minute they leave college? Not, right?
Not. That's exactly. And we kind of go back, look at the challenge which the industry has with the academics, and then go back and say where the divide is. I think as Salesforce, we have a wonderful tool called Trailhead. This is a platform, an open platform, a free platform, which allows people to get on it and learn skill sets which they can have, which is worth writing on the resume. It's probably technology around the 4th industrial revolution, where people can, and it's gamified and it's fun. So there's an ability for us to do some of that work. We kind of do that work with some of the large institutes in the country. We work with the government. We work with Niti Aayog in some of those areas.
Okay.
So those are areas which we are helping, but clearly saying that there's a long way to go.
Sure.
From that perspective, and I would think it's a joint ownership between the government, the industry, and the academicians to kind of work through that in the future. And we are a billion plus population, and the ability for us to turn that is far more higher.
Okay. Do you think there are companies like yourself which are encouraging more women then to enter, areas like, say, technology, machine learning, AI, etc.? Do you think there's enough happening on that front as well?
It is. As an organization, inclusiveness is pretty much deep-rooted, deep-seated within our organization. We do a lot of work. For us, we believe in that equal is greater and better as we look forward. And that's an area which we've done a lot of work on. Clearly in India, globally, and that's a space which Salesforce is clearly way ahead of the game. Okay. There's no finish line to it, but we're doing enough on that space.
Okay. Are we also way ahead of the game when it comes to data security? Because that's something that everyone is talking about, very crucial as we're ending this interview. I want to understand from you, do you think India's approach, our approach really when it comes to understanding data security, do you think small businesses understand what data security is? And do you think enough is really being done on that?
There are two aspects to it. One is the businesses do understand what data security is, and organizations like ours are very responsible in talking to our customers on what's data security is, where privacy is, what are the platforms which we use in, and how do they kind of look at data within our platform. And when we look at customer data, we genuinely believe it's customers' data.
Sure.
And that's an area which there's a lot of work which we do with our customers. From an industry perspective, I think there is work which is needed between the industry and the government to look at some of these things in a very holistic manner. And I think there are steps being taken, which is very positive.
Okay.
And we would encourage that dialogue to keep continuing.
So you're saying you're happy with where we're at when it comes to our approach to data security?
There's a lot of progress. There's a lot of progress when we kind of look at some of the things which is happening. And I think that's very positive for us too.
All right. Thanks so much for your time, Sunil.
Thank you, Sunanda.
Thanks for coming to our studios.
Appreciate it.
I'm going to slip into a short break. Skymet is joining us here on the show on the other side. Just stay tuned. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight our second The Influencer conversation is with Skymet. I'm being joined now by the founder and MD of Skymet, Jatin Singhs, a private weather forecasting organization, to really run us through what literally the weather and the temperature and the climate is looking like in the country at this point. Jatin, good having you here on the show. I understand you were a journalist before you turned entrepreneur, an inspiration perhaps to a lot of us here. I just want to understand, your journey and what that inspiration was for you.
So I was a journalist. I used to work for Raj Tak at one point of time. My father has been around meteorology for a long time. He was a vendor to the IMD. He's worked with the Air Force, ISRO, specifically providing meteorological equipment and data. And as I was close to the ecosystem, I realized that the IMD was sitting on a lot of data and a lot of know-how, and I don't think it was at that point of time being exploited. We could not even get access to the data in a nice way, and weather lends itself to very good visuals. So my first preneur, so to speak, was basically packaging weather data and making it better. And 2003 was a time when a lot of television channels were opening up, and I contacted Sahara Samay, and it was purely coincidence that at that point of time I got a nice meaty contract. And I kind of never have turned back ever since. Entrepreneur is always somewhere living beyond his dreams and anxiety. And what you want to do is perpetually de-risk. So I started getting better and better users for data. And over a period of time, in India, if you're looking at weather, there are basically two sectors that are where you get an instant audience. One is power. But the one that is fundamental to this country is agriculture. And when we got connected to agriculture sometime in 2008, that's when we really got the pull for our data and our expertise. And Skymet has grown there.
Your business model is unique and your company is unique in the sense that you are one of the very few private organizations that really does weather forecasting, something which is traditionally handled by government and government agencies and bodies. So my question to you is, what perhaps are some of the growth areas in this very niche segment? What can entrepreneurs in this space explore? What insights can you give us on this?
You see, we started out as a weather forecasting company, and now we've turned into a full stack agri-tech company working in finance. So that itself tells you that the deployment of weather data led to so many other things. So the applications, the thing was that the applications were not being done. And when you say that the government agencies, the world is changing. The internet has democratized data. The fact that IoT and sensing has become cheaper, there is so much satellite data and satellite imaging that is now available. That means you can do a lot of things that the government used to do, but you can do them on their own at a much lower cost and a much scalable way. So in the sense I was able to exploit that, and that is what the internet is actually continuously doing.
Weather forecasting is very crucial, Jatin, particularly because India is so dependent on agriculture and the importance of agriculture really as far as the economy is concerned. So my question is, if you can give us insights in terms of how you ensure accuracy of your data.
Accuracy, it's a long battle. It's an ongoing battle. And every time you become better at it, there are parts of which will become visible that you were not good at. So you challenge accuracy first. You need a really good network of automatic weather stations and sensors, and we've got 6,000, almost 7,500 right now. And then we do lightning, soil moisture. So we have a lot of data. You need tremendous amount of supercomputing. That's something that we've been able to build in-house. You need very specific statistical algorithms that we've been able to build in-house. And you need a very fine crop of what we call synopticians, people who have been living with weather data for all their lives to be able to make sense of it at different times of the year. So I would say that is the combination of things that goes into building a really good weather forecast.
Just run us through the kind of services you offer at Skymet, Jatin.
At Skymet, as we said, we're a full stack integrated agri-tech company that starts from forecasting the monsoon that a lot of people are aware of early in summer, basically in April, to do short range forecasts for precipitation and temperature, which is available on our website and our app, to giving crop forecasts, giving crop advisories to farmers, where we have an integrated sense of using the agri data as well as the forecast data to provide services to insurance companies to settle claims both in the yield space as well as the weather space. To work with government, we work with the Nagaland State Disaster Management Agency. We have created a whole network of hardware that gives them forecasts for landslides, floods, droughts. We work with the central government, especially Ministry of Agriculture, and we work very specifically on yield. We actually work with Amazon, for instance, for management of their supply chain, to be able to see when and where the demand is going to come from, both in the short as well as long range. So we've really been able to deploy our technology. We actually have an MOU with the government of Bihar. So they have actually gone out of the way and taken us to do their flood forecasting so that we can forecast floods, especially in North Bihar. So it's a wide range of services that Skymet is able to offer.
Like we were just discussing, weather prediction is highly complex and needs to be highly accurate. So my question is, what kind of technologies do you really use for this, when it comes to the work that you do, if you can run us through that?
We have been pioneering in weather predictions for the last 16 years. We are the people who really introduced monsoon forecasting. Today, there's credibility to monsoon forecast. Markets move and people plan because of the work we have done. We were the first people to innovate on medium range weather forecasts. We were able to figure out over a 15-day period if it's going to be dry or wet in a particular geography. If there's a probability of high rainfall events coming in a particular geography. We have also now innovated on hyperlocal forecasts. If we can give a nowcast in your vicinity in the next half an hour for lightning, because we have the only we were the first people to come up with a lightning sensor network in India, or a flash flood. And now in terms of what are we going to innovate, we're really working very hard on pollution. We think pollution affects about 500 million people for about 6 months, and we should be able to warn people about the impending risk of pollution. We should be able to, in real time, identify safe zones within a city. We should be able to figure out over the next 15 days which days are good and which days are bad for activity. We should be able to find a way so that we create enough data and we can identify the sources of pollution, so that people as well as government try to take care of it. So we are really working on finding a way to forecast and observe pollution.
I want to talk about Skymet Global and what you can share on that, Jatin.
Now, the developing world, let's say Asia or East Africa, or what's the near neighborhood, you have similar problems. You've got smallholder farmers, you've got climate change and variability. You don't have financial products to be able to take risk. You need sensing and deployment of IoT. So we had built strategies, both from an engineering point of view to first see it coming, to warn people, to minimize the risk, and then start creating, at least let the financial products around it work so that people get compensated, or that at least the government gets compensated. So the idea is to take this model to Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, to our neighborhood, especially Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and to the Southeast Asia, especially large countries with big populations, with small farmers like Indonesia and Philippines.
Are there any regulations in this space that we need to be aware of? Do you think perhaps there should be more, could be more that really happens?
There are no regulations in this space, and I mean, if we've been there for a while, if there was a need for regulation, it would have come. The space is too small right now to get regulated. And we need to experiment. The moment you have regulation serves a purpose. It kind of normalizes things, creates a level playing field for the rules of the game. But to figure out what the rules of the game should be, I think we need another decade of experimentation. So right now, it's a beast that is evolving on its own. I think we should let it roll.
All right, Jatin, out of time on the show. So if you can share, what's next for you, anything you can leave us with.
The future is very bright. I think we're looking at the agri-tech, fintech part in India. We will be the dominant player both in the insurance side as well as the banking side. Skymet is looking at sensing. So we have actually spun off another company which is called SkySense, which just builds IoT sensors. And we're looking at air pollution sensing as well as environmental sensing as well as crop sensing. And the idea is to convert that part of the business into a sensor manufacturer. That there is a great future in that. We are also very seriously now looking at space. There are a bunch of companies building satellites. We are interested in a lot of satellite data. Satellite data in India is limited. They're not tweaked to the kind of sensors that are required for agriculture, and we are deep into agriculture. Our vision is to de-risk the farmer at the plot level, and from the plot level we intend to go into the plant level. For that we need total control of both data and imaging, and we're really looking at putting some kind of Skymet weather as well as agri constellation in space dedicated to India.
Jatin, such a pleasure having you joining us here on The Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you, Sunanda.
Completely out of time on this episode. If you have any feedback, our contact details up on your screens in just a moment. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.